everybody. I'm Helen. I'm here to do a weekly reading for the collective, and we're just going to dive right in. I hope you're all doing okay. So starting us off, and we're looking really at where we are right now and the week ahead. We're feeling at this moment, potentially something that we're sort of experiencing or transitioning through right now, is that we're having a new kind of impulse. We're experiencing a new kind of impulse, a new kind of energy within ourselves. And it might feel a little bit disruptive to how we normally do things, to the way that we're used to doing things, to the ways that we think are the places that we think our power lies, right? The places that we think we have everything under control, the places that we think we are managing everything well because we are staying on top of things, because we are doing what's necessary, etc., etc. So it's not that that's not true, it's not that that's not the case, but there's something about this new energy that's coming through that feels like it's potentially bashing against that a little bit, or it's bringing us into a new way of looking at something, a new way of feeling into something, even a new just a new urge, a new impulse, something that we want to engage with, something that we feel excited about, that doesn't necessarily sit completely well with the kind of strategies that we feel like we have to have in place in order to get things done, in order to keep things moving. It's interesting because we've actually, there's been a big feeling of sort of almost like collective surrender to what's happening. The surrender might feel different for different people. It might feel different for different people. This could feel like, in some manner or in some ways, there's something that you feel like you've given up on. There's something that you were holding, or there's something that you were trying to keep together or trying to keep apart, right? There's something that you've had some hand in. And again, this sort of comes back to this energy of what we need to have in place in order to do things, how things should be done. It's not necessarily that it's bad to have strategies, right? We really need those strategies and structures sometimes. But there feels like what we're dealing with here, or what we're experiencing really, is a situation where some of the things that we have felt like we need to be, or the people that we need to be, or the things that we need to do, or how we need to kind of have everything in place, or how we need to kind of hold everything up, hold everything together. There's some part of that we have relinquished a little bit, given up on a little bit. This might feel positive or negative. This might feel like, fuck it, you know, I'm in the flow, surrender forward. Or it might feel like we've reached a point where we don't feel like we can keep going in the same direction, or that we don't feel like we can keep going with the same things. Either way, whichever one of those it feels like, or something else around this kind of area, it's sort of speaking to, again, a sort of transition point. We will keep doing things the same way until we come to a point where we either decide not to do things the same way anymore, or where we're kind of put in a position where we can't keep doing things the same way. This might sound really negative. It's not necessarily, right? And actually, like, underneath it, it's really not, because we have this new energy coming through. We have this new kind of sense of impulse that's coming through. There's something that we're feeling right now that we might not quite be able to pinpoint or put our finger on. there are things that we want to do and we're not quite sure why. There are things that we feel excited about, but maybe it's the initiation of something, it's the initiation of an idea, it's the initiation of an energy. And we're just not quite sure right now, perhaps, exactly where to put this, how to work with this. And that's okay. That's really okay. This sense of surrendering to ourselves, the sense of surrendering, what we're surrendering is the struggle, right? We're surrendering the struggle. We're surrendering the need to kind of feel that we've got to hold this all together. So that might have certain people feeling a little uncomfortable. Over the last week or so, though, and however that's been unfolding to you, whatever's been kind of happening, it's not necessarily, again, all been an easy time over the last week or so, but we are rooting into our power, right? And we are starting to experience it in different ways. We are starting to experience, even if it's the power of sitting with not really fully knowing how exactly things are going to pan out, but being able to sit in that and not to beat ourselves up and not turn it into some kind of failing on our part, but just to be present. There is some sense even of that kind of allowance that can help us to feel our power in a situation rather than our disempowerment in the situation. And there's something here that is really being tapped into. Again, this is potentially happening largely at a subconscious level. But whatever these new impulses are that are kind of coming through to us, they are part of an awakening that we have been experiencing over the last few days in one way or another, in being able to stand where we are and being able to feel that we, funnily enough, that we're almost, this is what's kind of brushing up against each other, that we're in charge, that we're in control, even as we see that perhaps the ways that we have previously felt ourselves to be in charge or felt ourselves to be in control are a little bit uncertain, or we're not quite sure how those things fit together, or we're not quite sure that we want to do things in the same way. Maybe we've been making some changes, maybe we've been shifting things up a little bit. Either way, it's calling us back to ourselves. It's been calling us back to our power. And with this sense that we had, like in last week's reading as well, with the certain structures that are crumbling and certain things that we're done with that are just moving out, moving out of our way in a lot of ways, it feels that right now we are starting to release ourselves from whatever has been brought up by those structures as they come down. We're quite aware right now of the places that we feel like have been a little bit collapsing around us, or the places that we feel in our lives have been collapsing a little bit. We've had our attention fully brought to those areas, and right now we're kind of focused mentally on releasing that. There's a really beautiful kind of dual energy that's coming through, and it's like the way we think things have to go, or the way we think things are, is becoming stilted, is becoming stunted. We're not quite able to feel as sure, as secure in those structures, right? But then at the same time, there is a development within our own power, within our own sense of self, within how we do things, what we're going to do, why, at what moment, for whom, for what reason. There's a different energy coming through the old. There's a new energy coming through as the old kind of releases and relaxes. And we're aware of it. Like, we're quite aware of this. And funnily enough, right now, we're quite aware, again, not necessarily in the same way that we would normally be aware. right? If we're very used to using our logical mind to describe and explain things and analyze things for ourselves, to feel like, okay, I know exactly where I'm at because I know exactly what this is and what that looks like, and I can express this and I can explain that. That's not necessarily what we're experiencing right now. And again, Pisces season has a lot to do with this. But what we're understanding, what we can start to recognize if we're actually open to it, is that there is a power without words. There is a power without words. There is a power that can't be described. There is a power that isn't generated or created in the description and analysis of it. Is something that is felt, it's something that is experienced, it's something that is happening whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. And we may feel in some ways that we're losing our way, but we will also simultaneously again have this sensation that there is something else here that we might not quite understand. And this does feel like it continues on from the reading that we did last week, where we've kind of got the subconscious and the conscious mind meeting one another, like uniting together. The experience of that can be quite strange, especially as we recognize that there are things that we don't want to move forward with, or ways of working, ways of thinking about things, ways of controlling ourselves that we're kind of done with here. So as we move into the next week, we may find that we are really kind of looking for proof in the physical world of something happening, right? It sort of feels like in this moment there's a sense of certainty in ourselves, but it's kind of wrapped in an uncertainty around how this energy will manifest, how this energy will translate into our physical reality. And that's obviously usually often where our logical mind wants to come in. The things that feel real, the things that are physical, the things that are definite and sure and logical. There's not much of that energy. In fact, we don't have any of that kind of mind energy, swords energy, logical energy in this reading. What we do have is our kind of sense of structures and how we show up in the world, and what we think we need to do being completely disrupted by this fire energy, this intuitive energy, this soul energy, right? We might find that we're looking for something to show up in our physical world. We're looking for something to happen that we've been trying to make happen. And maybe we've been trying to make it happen with our, like from one position and with all of our sort of limitations in place. And like, this is how I must go about it. This is how it must happen. This is how it must be. This is what it must look like. And there may be a little bit of a challenge over the next week to just stay with this process, to just stay with yourself, to understand that there is something powerful that is being almost like coaxed out of us or connected within us. And over the next week, it could be really helpful to kind of let go of the need to keep a complete focus or a complete eye on like what's showing up in the physical world, how are things unfolding in the physical world, because again, there is a link between the structures and the things that we think that we have to do, and the people that we think that we have to be, and all of these things that we might kind of force upon ourselves in some ways, that have already been broken down. We kind of know that these structures have already been rattled, right? We kind of experienced that actually last week. Now it's kind of being in trust of the process and knowing that newness will come. Like there's this sense of newness that we're experiencing right now, and there's a lot of newness still to come. There's a lot of things that are going to start showing up. And if this week we're not seeing results, we can actually allow that to bring us more closely back into the trust of the process, the sense of the process that we're in, that there is a lot right now that is happening that we can't quite comprehend, that is not quite clear to us, that is not quite seen by us at an intellectual level, but at a soul level, it makes complete sense. Again, it feels like maybe there is this, and it makes sense that part of that sort of suggestion for next week is we're bound to maybe feel a little bit unstable right now. We're bound to possibly feel a little bit unsure that we're completely safe, unsure that we have everything that we need. And again, as we allow ourselves to question, where do I think these things are coming from? How do I think these things come to me? How can I be safe and secure and also connected to my intuition? How can I be safe and secure and also to recognize that I am governed by a greater part of myself? That I am connecting deeply with a sense of my own self and my own power, but that also the idea of myself, and also in a lot of ways the idea of separation between people, between things, what's me and what's you becomes a little less clear. What's mine and what's yours becomes a little less clear. How can I do something for myself based on perhaps the rules and the structures that I have upheld, and suddenly those rules and those structures feel a little less clear or a little less useful, and we're not quite sure exactly maybe what we're doing, why we're doing it right now, and that can make us feel unsettled and insecure, right? Because so often, so much of the time, the reason why we think we're safe, the reason why we think we're okay, is because we have everything handled and we're on top of everything, and we have our to-do lists, and we know what we need to action, and we know what we need to stay on top of, and we can't drop the plate. And we're kind of dropping all the plates right now. In some ways, we might be kind of dropping all the plates right now. There really might be things where we're just like, no, I'm not really. Either we're finding our way through things and we're not quite sure how we've done it, or there are some things that we're just letting drop, letting slide, and that can make us feel a little bit insecure. That can make us feel a little bit like we're not going to be okay. And that's kind of part of this energy, right? In fact, what's so beautiful about this is that the things that we think that we need right now in order to keep us going are not the things that we think that we need. When we're focused outside, externally, in our physical reality, at all the things that we think we need to adjust and move around, all the things that we need to kind of bring together or pull apart, like there is this sense of the way that we interact with the world is being called into question, and the insecurity that brings up, the uncertainty that brings up is because we haven't necessarily fully done this before, because we haven't necessarily allowed ourselves to surrender before, surrender in the way that we have found ourselves doing more recently, in the way that has been starting to kind of happen within us. And some of this doesn't feel great. Some of this we might feel like, I'm not quite in control here. But there is something very, very important that's happening at a soul level. Again, there's a significant shift. And actually what we're going to discover, what we're being asked, invited to discover, is that where our power lies and where our safety is in our ability to feel our contentment, our presence, our emotional states, actually, whatever they might be, and be with them. And knowing that as we come through those things, we can find this place that is settled. We are being asked to find home in places within the internal, both with the energy of our soul and our fire and our passion and our purpose, and also within our emotional realms, this feeling of coming home to a sense of peace, coming home to a sense of safety, that is within us, that is an emotional experience, even if we might believe that it is completely dependent on the things that are showing up or not showing up, or how well things are going or not going in our physical reality, right? We are being called right now in a really, really significant way to the energies within us that are not mental and that are not physically manifested, right? Our soul energy, our fire energy, and our emotional energy. Both of these are where we contact with our intuition. Both of these are where we connect with a kind of deeper sense of ourselves. And it's actually our emotions and our feelings and our excitement and our impulses that are trying to not necessarily take the lead or take charge of us, but that we are kind of opening a door to give them a little bit more presence. And that's why we might feel like we're a bit more unsure of things. Also, Mercury has gone into Pisces. The sun is in Pisces. Mercury is the planet of communication and logic and information. And in Pisces, Pisces is not logical at all, right? Pisces deals with the realms of the subconscious and dreams and magic and general weirdness. So it's a good time for our mental, logical capacity to take a little break, right? It's a good time to bring our focus out of what's happening around me in the external world and what does that look like and how can I analyze that and what do I need to do next? And to feel those things kind of, we're crunching up against those things because they don't quite feel like they fit right now, or they don't quite feel like they're working, or we don't feel like doing the things that we think we should feel like doing. There's a blurring of the boundaries internally that's happening, and it's actually calling our attention to where our power is, which is in our impulse, in our ignition, in our passion, in our purpose, and really crucially, really importantly, in how we feel, in our emotional states, and in being able to recognize that coming home and feeling safe and being okay is right now, at this particular moment in time, much more about how we feel internally and how we feel in ourselves and that space that we can create within us than it is about trying to fix any kind of external problems. Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. The best outcome right now for us is the King of Cups. Emotional mastery, emotional maturity, right? The King of Cups is not about running from our emotions or only feeling happy. It's about, okay, like, I accept my emotional world. I accept that I have feelings arising within me at various moments. Some of them might be pleasurable. Some of them might be not pleasurable. Some of them might give me fear. Some of them I might have the almost unconscious instinct not to look at, not to feel. In the King of Cups, we find this place where we can allow our emotions to come and go. We're not afraid of them, you know, because we recognize that they bring with them really important, beautiful, powerful energy. And again, this is an information, right? And this is the other side of what we're experiencing right now, where it's like our idea of the world might feel almost like it's been turned on its head. Everything that we equate to real, the intellect and the physical world, are less important right now than the things that we might generally judge to be less real, our feelings and our impulses, right? And what we are aware of right now, and what we can be aware of, is that we're being brought to the understanding of the power of the information that our emotions carry with them, when we can sit with them, when we can allow them, when we can be with them, when we can let them move through us. And when we can feel this sense of being able, after that, and with that process, to return to a home state within ourselves of peace, of contentment. It's like we can journey out into these various emotions as they come through, and then come back and return to peace. And that this is an emotional experience. This is us playing with and understanding and being with our emotional experience, maybe more heavily than we are with our mental, logical experience right now, which might be a big shift for a lot of people, because this is not what we are generally encouraged and conditioned to do. Again, we want to look at and coming back to the beginning of the reading, this sense that these impulses that we're feeling, or the things that we want to do maybe are surprising to us, or there may be something that we thought we wanted to do and we're not quite feeling like we want to do it. There's a new energy that's coming through, again, that might be going a little bit at odds with our expectation and with our experience in how things are supposed to go. And actually it's teaching us, or it's bringing us to an awareness that's going to give us a really helpful and significant lesson in regard to the relationship between our inner energy and our outer world. And again, it's so interesting that the mental, logical faculty is kind of completely taken out of this, removed from this. It's almost like it's not needed at all. And we definitely can overuse our minds. We definitely can overuse our intellect and our logical, analytical function. And I think that right now, this moment is bringing us to a deeper understanding that that's not where the entirety of our power lies. That's not even where most of our power lies. If we want to affect change in our physical world, if we want to experience things and have things that we don't yet have, and right now we are starting to feel impulses to do things that we're not quite sure why, it doesn't necessarily make a whole amount of sense, or we're feeling things and we just need to sit and feel them, and we can't bring ourselves to do things in the way that we think that we're supposed to do them. There really is a message that if we can trust this and continue to kind of surrender to ourselves right now into this process, and understanding that it is bringing us something, it is bringing us a deeper awareness of the powers within ourselves, the energies within ourselves, and how those move. We're being taught a really valuable lesson about how these energies will ultimately translate into our physical experience, right? It's not about one or the other. It's not about either we have things in the physical world, either we have physical manifestations that we want and that support us, or we have nothing. There's much deeper subtlety and complexity in the energies within ourselves and in the energies that we're working in. If we're feeling that we don't want to do those things in the same old way anymore, or if just at the moment, and it might just be at this current moment, our usual ways of dealing with things, our usual ways of structuring things, or our usual ways of going about getting what we want don't feel like they make a lot of sense, or they don't feel fully aligned, or we don't really feel like working in that way. If we can trust this, we are going to be shown that there are other ways to get what we want, that there are other ways to find, to create the things that we want to create in our lives, right? So right now, this whole season is really bringing us right down into ourselves. And it may make us withdraw a little bit. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be. But there's a lot that's being awoken within us. There's a lot that's being kind of prompted. And if we can trust this process, we are going to learn something that is going to really, really help us as we move forward in whatever direction we're moving in, for whatever aims we're moving towards, for whatever we're trying to create in our lives, or to wherever we're trying to go, wherever we're trying to get to. Yeah, I think that we can see this as the physical and the intellectual energies, the energies where we are completely reliant on our understanding of reality as being what we witness outside in the external world and what we think about. Both those energies are taking a back seat because we're being asked to see the incredible power and importance of what we want and how we feel about it. What we want and how we feel about it. These are the energies that are being brought forward, and we're being asked to trust that focusing on these energies doesn't mean that we are forsaking the physical world. It's quite the opposite. We are being tuned in with the energies within us that are incredibly powerful and usually misunderstood and not properly utilized, not properly worked with. This is a deepening in our knowledge. This is a deepening in our experience. And this is an opportunity to really find a great amount of sovereignty and ownership, which will translate into the physical world, which is going to translate into what we're building, what we're creating, and what we have. It's not one or the other. It's not a trick. It's not a choice. Yeah. I hope that resonates and makes sense in some ways to you. Thanks so much for joining me, and give me a follow, give me a subscribe, ding ding, if you want to see more of my content as we move forward on this channel. Yeah, thanks again so much. Really wishing you the best for this week. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful week, whatever you're up to. Thanks. Bye.